I spent my whole life making somebody rich. I busted my ass for that son of a bitch. And he left me to die like a dog in a ditch. He told me I'm all used up. He used up my labor. He used up my time. He plundered my body and squandered my mind. And he gave me a pension of handouts and wine. And he told me I'm all used up. Now, that's Utah Phillips. Now, one reason we're striking here today is because we don't want a pension of handouts and wine. We want a fair pension. Yeah. Now, a pension is a form of deferred wages. We say to our employers, we'll let you delay paying us a part of our earned salary now, and instead you can pay it to us after we retire. This way we can still have a decent life after we get older and we're no longer as capable of work. So, first key point, basic dignity for the elderly should be treated as a given by a decent society, not something that requires painful struggle in the cold and the wet. Now, when the employers then come along and say, oh, we've decided to cut your pension, this is them saying, we've decided to cut your previously agreed pay. Now, are we going to let them just waltz up and do that? No! Now, over the past decades in the UK, we've seen many defined benefit pension plans which offered a guaranteed pension upon retirement in proportion to the number of years worked, replaced by inferior defined contribution schemes where the amount you receive on retirement is dependent on the risky ups and downs of the stock market. In practice, this shift has meant that many people in the UK have a significantly worse situation in their retirement age now than in the past. Now, workers in UK universities also had been fortunate to have a decent pension plan, but this has been reduced bit by bit over the past 10 years. And then in the beginning of 2018, the university employer said, we're now turning your defined benefit scheme into defined contribution. Sorry about that, and good luck in retirement. Now, at that point, UCU members across the country stood up and said, no. What did they say? No. Now, the employer said, sorry, there's a huge deficit in the pension funding scheme, and we need to cut the pension. These are just the financial realities. But UCU said to the employers, no, we've looked at the data, and the way that the pension scheme is currently being calculated is, in layman's terms, totally messed up. The claim deficit has been grossly overestimated, and in fact, the scheme is in good health. So please, let's just sit down, look at the numbers together. The employer said, sorry, we refuse to sit down and look at it with you. We just know that it needs to be cut. So take a hike. UCU said, no, we'll take a strike. Whoa. So we struck, and it was only after striking that the employers agreed to set up a joint expert panel with pensions experts nominated by UCU and the employers. Now, when the JEP reported in September 2018, they concluded unanimously the scheme is in good health and the major cuts are not needed. So UCU was vindicated, and here's what it taught us. We wanted to examine the scheme in an evidence-based way, as we've been trained to do, but it took strike action to get the employers to even agree to look at the actual reality. They'd been making claims about financial realities, but it turned out that they were refusing to look at the actual realities. So sometimes employers need the force of strike action to even start to look at things based on actual evidence. We can't necessarily trust what they tell us and can't assume that they're properly attuned to evidence-based reality. A scary thought, but one we need to take to heart. But why are we back here again in 2019, still striking over USS? We were able to preserve defined benefits. However, the main JEP recommendations have not been applied, and the scheme is still being calculated by the same problematic valuation methodology. So now they're saying to us, you need to put in higher contributions. In real terms, another pay cut. So again, they're still out to undermine the pension scheme, now by making it unaffordable in terms of the payments required. So we're forced to strike again to tell them, get it right this time. We already saw from the JEP that the scheme is fine. Now you actually need to implement it. So you here today should be angry that our pensions are being mismanaged and that we've been told to just accept it. We're fighting here today, but here's a key point to keep in mind. The trend of undermining defined benefit pensions across the country had previously been succeeding in horrifying ways. And the UCU strike was one of the few instances of stopping a defined benefit scheme from being closed. We took a stand against the employer's false claims, and in doing so we can set a precedent for workers in other sectors. We deserve a fair pension, and so do other workers. We will fight until we win, and when we do, we'll stand in solidarity with others who are also fighting against the false claims of their employers. And we'll also enact a lesson for our students in relation to a key part of their university education, which is that they also don't need to accept the false claims of those in power just because they say so.
All right. In the spring of this year, Trinity College decided to unilaterally withdraw from the National Pension Scheme, potentially undermining and weakening that scheme for people in higher education institutions across the country. And on that day, I resigned my fellowship. Now, we had fought a long fight. We had fought really hard inside that college, but in the end, they forced it through, as we knew they would. And the nature of my contract meant I could resign without undermining my pay and my work, and other people are trapped there, having been railroaded by the college management. And the Trinity scandal is, in miniature, the national USS crisis. And we can learn a lot from it. We can learn a lot about what will happen when they come back for our pensions at the national level. I'm talking about the USS trustees and Universities UK. They're already doing this by implementing these swinging contributions that are designed to be unacceptable. All right, so what will we see when they come for our pensions? What have we learned from Trinity? It teaches us that the same bogus financial rationale that informed Trinity Council's decision is going to be presented as good sense when it is a political and an ideological choice. And we're going to see a demand that we accept an attack on our benefits and rights presented as a request that we think about the greater good. And we're going to see a threat of future cuts presented as the promise of flexibility. All of this we will see, all of this we already have seen. We will see divide and rule tactics presented as consultation and consensus building. This is what we saw inside Trinity. This is what we have to be vigilant against as we continue the fight to protect our pensions nationwide. We need to keep the pressure up. This USS crisis is not going away. We need to keep fighting. We've got a long fight ahead. Solidarity.
This is an old chant, this is an old struggle, this is an old fight. And for some of you who are just starting, and it's maybe the first time you've been involved in a struggle, the great tradition that I'm part of, that the miners were part of, that Woody was part of, you are part of that tradition now. Whatever you're bringing with it, whatever songs you write, whatever chants you bring, whatever vibe you bring, you are part of that tradition now. And all the tradition asks is that you pass that on, you pass that solidarity on, you pass that compassion on. That is what our fight is about. Ultimately, fundamentally, it's about compassion. It's about empathy. It's about everybody together. Let's finish off with a verse and a chorus of one of them really old songs. When the union's inspiration through the workers' blood shall run, there shall be no power greater anywhere beneath the sun. For what force on earth is weaker than the feeble strength of one? But the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever! Solidarity forever! Solidarity forever! Solidarity forever! For the union makes us strong.
Our university! Whose university? Our university! Whose university? Our university! Whose university? Our university! Whose university? Our university!